Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Living Astrology with Janet. It's time to grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back and relax, and we're going to chat about whatever comes up to us today. And you might notice that I have my friends back. We missed you guys last month. I was like, oh, what am I going to talk about? It's their Friday. Obviously, I found things to talk about, but welcome back to Pia and Cullen. It's great to have you with us today.
Thank you.
And did you have a good trip?
We did.
We did.
Awesome. And you were doing something with friends, but weren't you going to a course or a class or something too?
We went to an experimental healing modality and tried it out with light and sound energy. It was very interesting, but the highlight of our trip was being with friends. We haven't been anywhere in 5 years, so being in a different place and with friends was really the highlight of the trip.
It was nice
I
to it was nice to be
Yeah.
taken care of. These friends cooked for we didn't cook. Well, Pia played the husband of this team, although he's not a professional chef, could be a 5-star executive chef.
He's an amazing
He's a
chef.
marvel in his kitchen.
And he let me play in the kitchen with him a couple of times. But other than that, they totally took care of us the whole time we were there, and we so needed
Oh,
that.
it was
It was a very nice retreat.
yeah, it was wonderful.
awesome. Well, tell us about the healing thing that you were experiencing. Did it meet your expectations? Did it go beyond your expectations?
Let's just say that it took a different turn from our expectations. There were some positive things and there were some unexpected things that happened, and we don't know quite where to categorize it yet, so we're still sitting with that one.
However, when we go back to the same area, we will
Revisit it.
revisit the same experiences.
So
And
we're going to be doing that next month. So ask us next time we're together. We'll have a more cohesive answer for you.
And tell us about that healing technique. Or can you? Can you share?
oh yeah,
Sure.
Yeah.
sure.
Because,
It's
lots of people are always interested in alternative healing methods and all of that.
Well, a doctor friend of ours who is the originator of Blue Shield protective therapy, that we've been recommending Blue Shield for people for years.
Mhm.
He sold his company and he started a new company, but he is the originator of Blue Rooms, which is Blue Shield technology turned into a healing technique. It brings in ultraviolet light and sound frequencies at various frequencies for healing, so that you receive the light and you choose the sound range, whether you want to work on your back, your thyroid, your endocrine system, your digestive system. You choose the frequency you want to work with at that sound level while you receive the light. It's deeply meditative, but he also has come up with a new invention. The Blue Room's been around for 10, 15 years, something like that.
Yeah, approximately.
The new one he's come up with is called Life Vessel. And you climb in it like you're climbing into a little spaceship. And it has other frequencies that come in at a higher level that put you on a completely calm, zone out level, so that you're removed from all the stress of the outer world and your body can re-regulate and do what it needs to do. So we each had 4 treatments of each of the 2 types of sessions. And it's worth trying out, and we'll give you more insight about it after our second visit, when we have more cohesive.
Yeah, they're kind of like the old-fashioned deprivation tanks, where you're isolated from any outside noise, any outside stimulus. You can only hear and feel what's going on inside these chambers, and it's pretty interesting just from a relaxation point of view, where you can just be yourself. There's no distraction. There's no
Mm.
nothing except you inside this space. And for living as humans in the modern world, that's pretty hard to achieve. It's not like just going into your bedroom and meditating. You'll still hear cars outside, or a siren, or a dog or a cat doing something in the neighborhood. This is absolutely a quiet completely individual experience. So
Mhm.
in a way, even if it didn't have healing modalities connected with it, it's like being in a completely quiet, absolutely uninterrupted space, which is uncommon for human life at this point.
No kidding. Even at night, you can't
Yeah.
have quiet.
Yeah.
People are asking about it. Is there a website, or I just put in Blue Room Healing, but it's obviously called something more than that, right?
There is, but I'll have to send you the link for it because I'd have to look it
Okay.
up.
Yeah.
But I can do
Okay.
that. I'll send you the link.
Um,
It originated in your state, actually. And there are blue rooms all over the world at this point.
We obviously went to one in Europe.
But
right.
for your listeners, wherever they live, either in America or Canada or in Europe, they're available in many, many places.
Yeah, but I'll send you the link. I'm making
Yeah.
myself a note not right now.
What is the doctor's name that is a part of this? Because people could Google that name too.
Dr. but how do you pronounce it?
Mateo Martinez.
Mateo Martinez. We call him
Martinez.
Dr. Matt. Yeah.
So Mateo, Mateo. Well, you know,
Yeah.
yeah. So
We
if you're
just
interested out there to look it up, just Google the doctor's name, Google maybe Blue Room Healings, and see
Google Life Vessel.
Life Vessel.
Lyfevessel.
Oh, one word?
No, two.
I think on the website it's one word.
Really? Oh,
Lyfevessel.
oh, okay.
Okay. Well, I put it there. If you don't find it separated, then Google it together.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This. Go
it
ahead.
sounds so fascinating to me.
It
It
is.
is. It absolutely is. We're really glad we had the experience, and we're excited to have the opportunity to try it again next month. So
Yeah.
it's good.
He's a really interesting man. He's an MD. He went to medical school, and he decided that he didn't get deep enough understanding of human anatomy, and which MDs don't get, as many other things they don't get. And so he went to chiropractic college after becoming an MD, which is really unusual because doctors usually don't become chiropractors. It just doesn't work that way in the hierarchy of
No.
modern medicine. So he has his medical background and a chiropractic background and a completely alternative understanding of true healing and medicine. So he's a really world-rounded person.
Very good. I like that. I was having a conversation with someone the other day. She works for a college university medical center or medical facility. And, we were talking about how she could differentiate herself within that system because it's so overtly scientific and logical and in her particular human design, she actually is a good mix of both logic and then the more intuitive. And one of the things I said that was really a big opening for her, for all of us to think about, is how to bring the best of the regular thing that we think of as medical, but also with the idea that we're also spiritual beings and that there is so much more to cutting people open or giving them medicines that we should be exploring. And she was thrilled with that idea, but I think it's like it's a thing that's time has come, right? That we're looking beyond. Stop just giving me a pill every time if I come in and I have a problem, let's explore it. Let's look at it deeper. Let's see where it originated. But they're just not prepared to do that.
No, what you're sharing about the conversation you just had is a wonderful example of what quantum physics is bringing to science. And that is the melding or marrying or blending of science and spirituality. And that has been the missing link from modern medicine because modern medicine has compartmentalized the human body. They have turned everything into this field, that field, this part of the body, without a holistic understanding that if you don't get the big picture, if you don't look at the holistic entire body, as you said a moment ago, really looking at what's going on in a deep way, they're not going to understand how to fix whatever's out of balance. So
Yeah.
melding science and spirituality is really the answer at this point.
Yeah. It's a big deal. I just saw my friend Londa check in this morning. Good morning to you too, sweetie. And she is part of this wonderful healing group of people. And for I don't know if they're getting ready to do this again, but they were doing long distance healing, for lack of a better word. I'm sorry, Londa. I know I'm butchering that, but people would a group of healers would get together and people could sign up for healing and they would send healing energy to these people. And it was amazing. And again, Londa, I know I just botched that up. So if you can fix that for me. It was amazing the results that people were getting, even though they weren't being touched, right? They were being touched spiritually or, etherically. So I mean, I really love that idea that there's so much more than what we uh, think about in terms of our healing. I I
Absolutely.
have this I have this wonderful book that I pull out periodically. It's a very thick book. It's called Metaphysical Anatomy. Yeah,
Mm,
Metaphysical Anatomy. Have you ever
yeah,
seen this book?
we know. Yep.
Yep, we know it.
Very thick book. And it's amazing to me to go pick up anything, any disease, and to start to look at what the metaphysical um, uh, maybe the source of the problem, the emotion that's connected to the problem, that a doctor would never take the time to do that. You're never
Mm-mm.
going to a regular doctor. And then like my husband has a really good doctor, and she is sometimes really open to alternative methods, but at the same time they're so trained to have specific answers to specific complaints, and doing something like this, having that as a resource to look, okay, well, let's look at the emotions behind what's going on with you. How did you get here? Because as we know, it never really starts in the physical. It starts
Exactly.
out here,
Mhm.
and all right, Londa is saying, thank you, Londa, still doing it. It's called Illumined Healing through the Divine University, and they have 50 global healers.
Mm.
Amazing, right? And
Great.
they just tap in
Yeah.
and
We we call this remote healing.
okay.
We've been involved in this for decades, and it works. There's the whole concept. One of the wonderful things about quantum science is there's no difference between something that's happening locally or something that's happening remotely. It's the same energy. So we don't have to be in the presence of someone to be effective in helping.
Because there
Uh,
is no time and
There's
there is no space.
Yeah, absolutely. But
Absolutely.
you just said something when you said a moment ago that things happen outside of us or in the etheric. Something else P and I are going to be involved with next month. We're going to go to a very special practitioner, and he calls his work aura surgery. And what he does is he only works on the aura, not on the physical body. And he is able to detect what's wrong with someone from a non-physical point of view, whether that be our etheric body, our light body, an injury from a parallel past life, whatever it is that's not physically in this 3D experience. And we're really curious. This guy is, we've seen videos of him and he seems really amazing. And we're really curious and excited to go spend time with him.
So that's our next adventure, part of our next.
Adventures in healing. I
Yeah.
hope you're taking copious notes of the adventures so that you could write a book about it.
I was going to say that's a great book title.
It is. It is.
Maybe.
This is such a great topic, and I know people love this. And one of our listeners, Leilani, out there, good morning, Leilani, says she she says, "Wow, I joined at the right time. I'm going to school for iridology and cellular regenerative nutrition slash herbalism for humans and animals." Again, taking the science behind something and blending it with the more metaphysical or spiritual seems to me to be the smart path.
Absolutely. And I studied iridology all of last year and used it on my own health and Cullen's health. We followed that path. And not anybody has said this that I'm aware of, but nobody seems to be tying in with the idea that the eyes are the windows of the soul. So I think if you look at the spiritual aspects as well as the physiological, there's a deep connection there. I think that's a wonderful path to follow.
Yeah, I think it's
It
fantastic.
really, really shows the origin of many problems.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And, something else you said, Colin, I think it was you that said this about parallel lives. And, there's so many times that, we can't seem to find an origin for a malady, right? Like, there's just no reason. Like, uh, they named it chronic fatigue syndrome, I think, because, women, I think is where it started, would come in with these symptoms and they they would test them for all these different things and they couldn't figure out what it was. Fibromyalgia, I think, might have been another one where, they have to have a label, right? There's got to be a label, there's got to be a diagnosis code, right? In order for them to get paid, right? They have to bill something out. So they create diagnoses codes. But what people missed in all of that was the opportunity to look at beneath the surface of those things. What is it? It was seemingly women, not to say that men weren't experiencing this at all, but it was seemingly women. And could it have been related to the fact that women were taking on so much, too many hats, wearing too many hats, taking on too many roles in their lives, and it was impacting their health, which really isn't something that you have to deal with that on multi levels. And then
Mhm.
what if a parallel life? I was reading something, hmm, or I heard this, that we're actually involved in about 6 different parallel lives or something to that effect. And what if there's bleed through from these different dimensional things that you're experiencing that come into your body?
Oh, Janet, there's no what if about that. We can attest that that's true.
It's a reality.
It's a reality.
It's a reality.
It happens.
Yeah.
We experience that all the time.
As we begin to understand how much actual DNA we have, not the two parts that modern science has said that we have, when we realize that we have many strings of DNA, each one of those strings or filaments is connected to a parallel experience. So absolutely bleed through. Thank you for using that term because it's a great descriptor. Bleed through is real. I mean, if we only look at the idea of deja vu, people have these ideas of this seems familiar, but I don't know where it came from. I'm not experiencing this here and now. However, I'm aware of it. Well, that is a connection to a parallel life.
The bleed through is part of integration because our job here now on the planet is to integrate the experiences of all the parallel lives into a cohesive unit of understanding of who we truly are so that we can leap into a higher form of consciousness.
And, those parallel lives, let's talk about that for a minute because, we think of life as physical, right? Because I'm here, my feet are on the ground, and that's absolutely true. In this particular dimensional reality, we're operating in this facet or phase. But the thing that makes you is that you are a multi-dimensional being. So it would be ridiculous to think that you're only here or you're just focused in this one, but that there are these other parts that are also simultaneously playing out. And it really does, twist your mind to think about that. But when you go to sleep at night, here's a really good example of going to sleep at night. We're crossing through dimensional gateways as we fall further into sleep. And in those different dimensional gateways, especially as we gateway between the fourth and the fifth dimension, we have access to our multidimensional selves. And I think sometimes when I come back in the mornings, I'm like, wow, that was so real, right? That that experience I was having, or those people that I don't recognize the people, but I recognize the people, but they're not the people that are in this, you know, lifetime. But I
Mhm.
certainly knew who they were in that parallel life. So I think we're crossing over all the time. And I think it's short-sighted of us to only think about what's going on in this dimension. It's like doctors then only dealing with what they see in the physical, that they can throw a pill to or therapy at and that type of thing. It's short-sighted.
It is.
We agree completely.
We are so much bigger than our earthly three-dimensional understanding of who we are. I mean, it's incredible. We're doing things out there in so many dimensions. There are aspects of us that are doing so many interesting and unimaginable tasks or missions that are so much bigger than just our three-dimensional human experience. It's mind-boggling once people become aware and they start to have memory or snapshots of who they are in other areas. I mean, it grows upon itself. Once you start remembering, once you start experiencing this, more and more experiences show up. I mean, it's whether it's in dreams or visions. I don't dream. I am not a dreamer. I don't have any dream recall. People say that we have to dream to be alive. If we don't dream, we're not getting regenerative sleep. Well, I don't have any dream recall whatsoever, but I have daytime visions. And
You also have intuition that's off the charts.
well, okay. And so I get glimpses of things without being in the dream state. It's the same thing. It's just a
Yeah.
different avenue to the same experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and you're just interacting with that in a different way than
Mhm.
say, other people that would, typically experience the dream state. It doesn't mean that you're not dreaming. It just means you're not remembering that. But then in your waking state, you have access to it where other people don't.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
Exactly.
it's just different.
It is.
I wanted to go and talk a little bit about something or read some comments that are coming in because apparently we've triggered something really cool for people today. Um, Christine Buckingham says Louise Hay wrote a book about this years ago. Tibetan Buddhist monks have also done this remote healing for a long time. Reiki works, energy healing, whatever the label is, works. I love that. And then she goes on to say Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine from India have combined the physical and spiritual for eons, right? We just have to remember all of that. Tom, hello, Tom. Also, deja vu, I think is what he was trying to say, experienced something familiar as if it were strange and unknown. Very cool. Yeah, because that to me, deja vu is one of those moments where you've gotten access to a different dimension. Maybe it's the future of this dimension. Maybe it's something parallel sneaking in. Uh, but I that's always like made me go, woo, I got to think about this more. Londa says we have specialized training for 7 areas, working in symbiotic relationships with the celestial realms, teams, doctors, psychic surgeons, etc., where the 3 specialists work in different chambers of healing, which is in the field, clearing, releasing in the 7 energy bodies. Some are working on the nervous system related to the soul and body healing. Some are working on the DNA. Some are working on the etheric system, the mind, body, soul, etc. So you have a team of people working on a healing at many different levels.
Mhm.
Feels holistic. I think it gives us a better picture of what holistic means. Uh, and J Lo is saying that that also happens to her, Cullen. So you're not alone out there in that experience. She says she calls it small snippets of a movie. um,
Good way to say it.
That's
yeah. And Tom says, no, vous jade. Okay. Tom, opposite of deja vu. I get it. I get it.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So I just wanted to make sure people got their voices heard. If I've missed somebody, I apologize, but they go by so fast. Nope, I think I got them. Okay, so now I want to go to something along the lines of what do your Pleiadian friends discuss with you about the healing of the physical body or the mental, emotional, spiritual body? How do they deal with healing?
Well, they pretty much agree with what we've been talking about. They say the physical is the last aspect of the self to heal, that you have to heal at the spiritual level first, and then you have to work through the emotional and mental levels, getting rid of the belief systems, allowing the emotions to show you what within you needs to change, and then the physical begins to make changes. But they also say something else that's pretty important. They say that we have 50% responsibility of what comes towards us. The other 50% is given to us by the universe with or without our choice. It's what the universe says, this is what you need. And we have 50% of choosing what we want to do. But we have to work with 100% of our 50% to manifest what we want. And bearing in mind, it needs to be in alignment with what the universe is bringing us. So one thing that they teach us over and over again is pay attention to signs and symptoms. The signals are there to show you this is out of balance, make another choice. This is out of balance, make another choice, which Cullen and I are in the process right now of making another choice because we're seeing a lot of signs that it's time for a big change.
The Pleiadians that we work with often talk about the fact that humans aren't very good at recognizing signs and symbols, that they're all around us. We're constantly given, whether it's our own intuition, our own psyches, whether the universe is dropping these little gifts on us, we don't recognize. We're so busy. We're so absolutely busy doing what we're doing that we miss a lot of these opportunities. And sometimes in hindsight, we can look back and go, oh my God, I realized 13 years ago I should stop doing this, but I didn't. I just kept doing it because it was my habit, my rote way
My
of doing
routine.
it. And they talk about this extensively.
They also talk about the fact that most humans would rather say, why is this happening to me? And go into victim consciousness and blame the
Oh,
or blame somebody else rather than saying, and instead of saying, why is this happening to me? Turn the question around to, why is this happening for me? What am I being shown that I need to do? So we have to change our perspective, and no healing is going to occur without that perspective change.
Yeah, and I think another important part of this discussion about healing is we have to step away from the idea that there is a healer and a healee. We are responsible for healing ourselves. What a healer does is provide either a safe atmosphere, instruction,
Energetic support.
whatever a person that has healing abilities can do for another person is help them understand that it's their responsibility to heal themselves. There is no true way of someone just healing someone else.
You can't expect somebody else to fix you. You have to be willing to meet them, accept their gifts, and then do your part by making the changes.
And that's part of what's wrong with modern medicine. As you said a few moments ago, people go to a doctor, they want a pill, they want surgery, they want microwave medicine, they want the silver bullet, they want whatever's bothering them, whether it's a pain, whatever the situation is, they want to go to what we call medical experts and have them take away the problem. Mm-hmm. That is giving up your responsibility to yourself to work on, why is this happening to me? How did this begin? Did I get an inkling 12 years ago that there was something out of balance? Was there a twinge in my leg that I ignored? Was there something going on that I was either too busy to look at, or I was afraid? And this is a really big aspect. I was afraid to know what's really wrong with me? And people put off their own responsibility, number one, but they also put off going to the doctor, sometimes for years, until it gets so bad that they feel
Right?
if they don't go to the doctor, they will die in days, weeks, or months. We need to step away from that and be self-responsible. And I know we talk about this on your show a lot about
Mhm.
self-responsibility, but it's ever important in a discussion about healing because we give our power away to a so-called expert when we should be part of the picture. We should be part of the equation.
So back to the original questions, what do the Pleiadians say?
Mhm.
They say that anything can be healed if we take self-responsibility and do our work, and that healing does not always look like curing. Sometimes healing shows you that there's a purpose for what you're experiencing. And they also say very clearly that we need to remember that nobody outside of us can do it for us, and stop blaming circumstances and look at them as opportunities. So they're really big on empowering us to recognize that anything can be healed. We just have to change our perspective.
And sometimes illness is the best teacher.
Mhm.
Sometimes we have to go through something for our own evolutionary experience. And there's a great example. When you look at critically ill children in hospitals worldwide, you see all of these little children who are deathly ill. They have lost their hair through chemo and radiation. They're suffering, they're having a hard time. Yet, most of those children are not unhappy. They're smiling. They're actually communicating with other children within their own unit. They're having a pretty interesting time with the nurses and therapists and doctors. And often these children who are so critically ill are actually going through this process so that their parents, their siblings, their grandparents can learn something
Mm.
about detachment and about the real understanding of what death is really about. So all illness is not a negative situation. All illness is not something that we want to avoid. Some illness is either karmically or evolutionarily appropriate for us to learn what we need to learn.
We just don't like it because it's uncomfortable.
Well, I mean, it's hard to see these little children that are suffering from
Yes.
cancers or, these things, and you're thinking like, well, there's the spiritual part of us that says, well, it's a choice made at this level of the soul for whatever learning or purposes that served that soul. But on the other hand, it's so hard to watch in the physical where everything to us seems unfair that a
Mhm.
child would suffer through like that or have that happening in their lives. Um, and that is really kind of part of that victim-y still thinking that
It
that is
is.
here. Yeah.
It is. I used to spend a lot of time with the dying process. I spent a lot of time with dying people. And when I was around these children, I realized pretty quickly that they were actually angels in disguise. They were they were doing their mission either to help themselves grow and understand the bigger picture, or they were going through it for their families and society. And when I came to that realization, it changed my view. It changed my belief altogether because I realized that this was just another experience for them. It seems hard, it seems terrible, but it's something that happens, and there has to be some goodness to it also.
It's just hard to see that, right? When you're watching an innocent child
Yeah,
suffer
yeah.
from these different maladies. And I think that, it really goes back to what our ideas of death and dying are, right? There's that hmm, maybe a fear that's kind of lodged deep in our being about dying, as in, it's the end of us. And um, every once in a while you'll hear somebody, famous who says there is no God, there's no dying. When you die, it's it. You're just dust in the wind, kind of thing. I just think they do such a disservice to
I do.
to people because, then other people are like, "Oh," somebody famous just recently had a near-death experience, and because they didn't experience heaven or an afterlife during that experience, he said, "There is no afterlife."
Then how is he reporting that he had an experience? That makes no sense.
Because he didn't go anywhere, he didn't remember anything about it, he died and came back. Okay, so death must just be final and there's nothing afterwards. But, think about the, people that might be impacted by somebody saying that. I mean, it just kind of solidifies that death is final. And I know from experiences that I've had that it isn't. Right, that it
Yeah,
isn't. I've
yeah,
not died and gone over and crossed over, came back and had that experience, but I'm interacting all the time with people who have passed over.
Yeah.
Uh, so how can it be final? That's
Well,
the question.
I'm sitting next to a person who I know has died 3 times, and what what she learned, if I can speak for her just quickly, what I learned through her was that death isn't any different than life. It's just a swinging door. It's just another part of who we are. It's just another experience.
and at the same time, we are to learn that the pain and pleasure are the same thing. They're just on different ends of a continuum. And you can swing between the poles of that continuum by the choices and perspective you have. You don't really have to be in a lot of pain. You can take the pain and move it over to a perception of this is uncomfortable, but when I get back in balance and figure out what's out of balance, I can move it away. But if you focus on, oh, this hurts, you move into a level of resistance, and the resistance solidifies the pain. So I learned a lot of things in my journeys to the other side, one of which I was declared legally brain dead for 7 minutes. So I have it legally on record that I died. And
But
here
you
I
still
am.
have a brain.
I still have the brain. I still can talk. I still can do a lot of things that people
um,
don't do.
and it's funny because we have these beliefs, right? And how much does belief play into it all, right? If you get a cancer diagnosis, is there this automatic belief that kicks in that you're done for? You're toast, right? No
Yeah.
matter how many therapies, chemo treatments, radiation treatments that, but I want to talk about that for a second because you said that it's choice, right? On that it is that the 50% that we have responsibility for is going to be involved with our choices. So if we're making a choice, now this is going to twist people's noodles. If we're making the choice to be ill, how could we then change that choice to be well?
Well, I think you
We,
have to change the focus on the descriptor that you're ill and change the
Ah,
perspective to, I'm having an experience that's extremely uncomfortable. I need to change my perspective to the higher vibratory things. What can I be grateful for? Who am I connected to? Where's the beauty in my life? And through doing that, you bring in a higher frequency, and that automatically helps bring you away from the illness into the health. And can I just say one more thing?
Mhm.
One of the things that our Pleiadian friends tell us is that the root cause of almost every disease is fear, and you
ah,
have that big diagnosis of if you get the big C, people immediately go into fear. Oh, what does that mean for me? Am I going to die? Do I have to go through treatments? They move into fear instead of looking at it in a detached manner of, oh, I'm out of balance. What do I need to come back into balance?
there are so many case histories. There are a number of famous MDs around the world who advocate that when someone is really truly out of balance, they think they're dying, that if they raise their vibration, as Pia just said, and one of the examples is really silly example. One of these doctors back in the 70s and 80s told his patients, watch as many funny movies as you can, because if you watch funny movies, you will laugh a lot. And if you laugh a lot, you will raise your vibration. And there was an equation between people laughing a lot and getting better. There is absolute proof that if people raise their vibration through laughter or joy or bliss, miracles happen. People find that their medical imbalance straightens out, but it's a voluntary thing. That's why choice is so important. People have to get out of the thing of, oh my God, I've got cancer, I'm going to die. What they have to do is change the belief system and go, okay, here's a rough road. I've entered a place that's not comfortable, but I'm going to do things to turn it around. And that is what makes the difference in someone's self-healing. Being in a different space of understanding what life is all about, and what Pia just said about being happy that you have a loving family, being happy that you've got a dog, being happy that, whatever the circumstance is, drawing in those things that are not negative, that are higher vibratory frequencies, really, truly does make a difference in self-healing.
So the formula for healing is pretty straightforward, but nobody ever said it was easy.
And the thing that I was just thinking about is how the people around you respond to your cancer diagnosis, let's say. Right. I know just recently a friend had a diagnosis of cancer, and my initial response, even, and I should know better, was, oh my God, how bad is it? Right. Rather, so then you're surrounded by people who are afraid for you, or maybe have pity for you, and maybe they're compassionate and they feel for you. But you also need to have people surrounding you that are supporting whatever choices are that you're making. If you're choosing, oh, I see, I'm going to change my life because I have this diagnosis, I need my family and friends, I need all of you to support the vision of me back in health, feeling my best.
Absolutely.
And Janet, the workshop that I did last August on healing through this transformational time, I have a cornucopia of healing remedies that people can use. And one of the key points listed in that list of healing remedies is being around happy people, because happy people bring your vibration up. When your vibration is up, you can then self-heal. If you're around negative, grumpy, complaining, resistant people, your own frequency and vibration gets lowered, and your own immune system responds to that energy instead of the healing energy.
And that is the crux of why we need to stop fearing death, because that knee-jerk reaction that you just described in your own life, if people could automatically catch themselves and say, well, let's see what we can do about this. Let's take a positive step. Let's look into what can you do and how can I help you, whether it's supplementation, whether it's making yourself walk when you don't want to, maybe it's you're not hydrating enough, whatever it is. If we can simply step in and go, let's do something different, that is what people need. And the negative,
or even saying, what can I do to support you?
yes,
What can I do to help you be, in health? That would be
absolutely.
even better, because maybe the person doesn't, maybe it's their ticket out. Maybe they,
Yes.
and let me
Exactly.
support you on that transition. But
And I do have people come to me and say, I'm leaving now, help my family, I'm going. And they die.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot. That's been happening since I was a child. So I've known all of my life that death is, as Cullen said, a swinging door. That's what I call it, because it's not the end to anything.
Yeah. So something else. Were you finished?
Go ahead. I'll add my thought. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, finish.
I was just going to say that one thing that's really important about recognizing it's the swinging door is not to cling to what is, but be open to something that can be even better, different and better. Just be open.
Yeah.
Don't be attached.
Yeah. One thing I learned, this is just a really quick comment. When I was spending time with people dying, whether it was in hospital situations or in homes, wherever it was, I learned very quickly to become a better listener. I learned that often people don't want to talk. They just want the support, whether it's holding someone's hand or being meditatively quiet with them, but not bombarding them with questions or answers, not saying, you should do this, or I'm afraid about blah, 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 blah. Just being with them in a supportive manner. People really don't want to be bombarded with information or help that they're not asking for.
Mhm.
They just want support. They just want someone to be with them. And I think a lot of people that are so fearful of death, they ask the wrong questions or they make statements that are not appropriate. And that contributes to the negativity or the dumbing down of the higher vibration that the person needs at that moment. So
Yeah.
I think being a better listener and not being so pushy, if I can use that kind of strong term, is really the kind of support that people want and need.
Yeah, because, as soon as somebody says, "Well, I have such and such a cancer," that everybody around them, if they're not going into fear for them, are trying to push different remedies onto them or,
Exactly.
things like that. I get that. Out of a heart of, full of love for the person perhaps, but also adding to the stress load that the person is
Exactly.
already experiencing. I wanna go quickly to some of the comments that have been passing through here because, again, we've gotten so many good things going on here. J-Lo says, yes, she's a Pleiadian star seed here. So what I have lived with seeing is patterns. I'm not sure. I think we were talking when I asked you about how do the Pleiadians see this. And then that's what she does. She says, and my children say everything cannot be fixed. That's kind of funny. Christine says, then there are people who know something is wrong in their body and the doctor dismisses how the patient is feeling.
Mhm.
Or then they label it with some, bizarre thing.
Yep.
Christine also says Michael Keaton was in a great movie called My Life that involved a Chinese healer. Great movie involving these themes that we're talking about today. And Julie Kiss, great wisdom. Lovely Lion Bala says, I love you. We love you too. Um, and Christine says, maybe we choose the lessons, but not the manner in which the lessons occur.
Yes.
Okay. And then Randa Akia says, I had an NDE, near death experience. There is no such thing as death. We are sentient aspects of God or source consciousness. We are source experiencing itself through each of us. They're absolutely correct in what they share. Our inherited beliefs and systems built upon oppression and duality, separation, which are expressions of fear, false evidence appearing real. God is you always in all ways. And TD Hawk, hello to you. Let's see, Colin. This is from Christine Buckingham. Colin, I was thinking about a movie made about that story. The actor Ed Asner played the patient who chose to watch funny movies to heal. I love that. Tina, good morning. Starting the day with gratitude of the first 5 things that come to mind. I'm thankful for hot water running out of the tap, of my cup of coffee. I have a great job. I have an income that supports me. I have choice. I'm alive, right? All those things that you're grateful for. Tom says, Arthur Ford, when we get over the fear of death, we'll be immortal.
That's
Gotta
great.
love. Yep. J-Lo, it's my saying exactly oddly. I have had the animals come to me when they are about to cross over. It happened with my mom on the day that she was leaving. I think some people are just more open to that
Yeah.
and experience that. TD Hawk, when you don't have family or any close friends because they have passed, it's just worked out this way. I support myself as much as I can, but realize the blow from missing these loving supporters. I gotcha. Yeah. Um, but realize that the blow from missing these loving, supportive people that I had been so blessed with them in my life at the time that they were in her life. Film Patch Adams is about the doctor that started the laughter, raised the vibration. That's from Tom. And great. I mean, I love it. Linny, good morning to you. Popped in late, but really wanted to thank you all for this inspiring conversation. I look forward to hearing the whole interview later with the replay. Indeed, we'll have that out there for everybody. So, this is a good subject.
It's one everybody's interested in right now because
Yeah.
this is a very chaotic and catalytic time.
Yeah. There's another movie. I'm sorry, I don't know the name of it. It's pretty old, 20 years old. The actor is either John Hurd or John Hurt. I'm not sure which one of the actors. He is portraying an MD who has to go through the medical system as a dying person. And he is seeing it from the point of view of a patient, not a doctor, and how he is channeled through a inhumane system of the medical system.
Conveyor belt medicine.
Yeah, and it's a really, really wonderful movie because it showed him how mechanical and how out of sync modern medicine is in not treating patients with kindness, compassion, and love. And it was a wonderful movie. I hope people can find it through one of those actors' names, John Hurd or John Hurt. I don't remember which one.
So, Janet,
Yeah.
I just want to say the 50% I talked about the universe bringing us 50%.
Mhm.
We don't know how we got into this topic today, that it needed to be the topic, but we're talking about between worlds, life and death. And today is 7 energy, which is the merging of both. That's the universal energy today is 7, and the earth energy is catalyzing. And we're talking all about catalytic changes. I just find that incredibly mystic and interesting.
It's a sign, right?
It-
It's a sign that this is an appropriate topic for this time and something that everybody listening now and listening into the future was needing to hear in order to impact the healing on the planet, or maybe for themselves, or to help a person close to them heal.
Yep. Yep.
There are no
So-
accidents.
No. And so looking at the clock, we have a few minutes left. You wanted to talk about some specific astrological elements when we first began. Can you weave that into what we're talking about?
Well, I was, my mind is always working and weaving and putting webs together, right? Connections. And one of the biggest things that I wanted to talk about was this change. Well, for example, right now, the sun is moving through all of the gates of the spleen center in your human design. And the spleen is the center for survival. But I also want to posit that it might also be the center for thriving. And in fact, it is, right? Survival has kept humans alive on the planet for a long time. But do you want to merely survive, or would you rather thrive? And that becomes a question that each time of this year, or this time of year, that we actually get to work through. From the end of September until the first week in November, the sun is, bringing all of this into our consciousness. And then today, of all days, right, it's moving into a new gate or gene key. And that is one about nurturing, and not just nurturing, but taking responsibility for your own for your own healing, for your own self-care. So we're moving into this week now where the focus becomes on taking appropriate responsibility, right? For yourself, but in the ugly part of this, where it can go so wrong, is where we become so responsible for everybody else that we leave ourselves out of that equation. And so we're giving, or taking control over everybody else's lives, but in the process, we're eating away at our own vitality. So it's an invitation to really restore balance between your personal responsibilities and helping other people thrive, right?
Mhm.
So that was one of the things that I was thinking about. Wow, that is so interesting. But on the other aspect, so that's the sun. On the other aspect, the earth is sitting in the gate 3, which is called the gate of innovation, inventiveness, right? There's a real future orientation here. And I've often thought, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, our doctor's going to look back at chemotherapy and go, "Oh my God, what were we doing?" Right? We were
Mhm.
killing people
Mhm.
rather, instead of doing, something milder, something more spiritual, or something more compassionate. And that's kind of this energy that we have with the earth, that we have to stabilize ourselves with earth, but we have to stabilize ourselves in a way that's innovative, that looks to the future and what more is possible, right? What if we blended science and spirituality in a way in all areas of life, not just in our personal lives, but what if medicine became that way? What if government became that way? What if schooling became that way? That is what lies in our future. It lies in the realm of possibility, but we have to choose it. We go back to choosing. We always go back to choosing, don't we?
Mhm.
Having to choose. So, um, in the end, we're with this week, some people may be triggered by the feeling in their own body of fatigue and tiredness, feeling heavy. And one of the ways to self check would be, okay, where are the boundaries? Have I crossed them over? Have I crossed over boundaries and taken on other people's illnesses, or taken on responsibility for things that weren't mine to be taken on? So boundaries become important here. And how can you practice setting those healthy boundaries while still having the giving heart, right? And being able to help others. But it kind of is an upside down thought that we have to take care of ourselves first in order to be able to help others.
That
Yeah.
that is a huge upside down pyramid understanding. And uh, people need to know that if we're not taking care of ourselves, we can't take care of other people in a responsible or energetic way, because we have to be balanced in order to help other people be balanced. And it just doesn't work the other way. It's impossible to be effective unless we are working at the best rate that we can work at. And if we don't take care of ourselves, we won't be in that equation.
Absolutely. And here's the other thing about, when we look at the shadow of the energies that are being presented to us this week, the shadow of the sun is corruption, and the
Mm,
shadow of the earth is chaos. And when I say corruption, I'm not talking like, governmental corruption, although that certainly could be a part of it. It's a mistake in the code, right? A mistaken belief. You know how you put software, on your computer, or hardware on your computer, and if it doesn't work out right, a code corruption occurs. Well,
mhm,
this is a code corruption. This is where we've taken on a belief system, or our bodies representing the corruption in our thinking, or in our emotions, or in our physicality, our environment perhaps, or even in our spirit. And then it's the ask is, okay, well, let's fix this. Even though I want to say you're not broken, how can I repair the corruption?
yeah.
Right. So that the lowest energy is in corruption, but it goes on to equilibrium, and it goes on into harmony. Right? Those are our levels that we can move through, from shadow to siddhi, which is the highest expression. And when we go to the earth's energy in its lowest, it's chaos. Anytime we attempt to do something new, there's always chaos in the beginning, right? We're
Mhm,
not quite sure what to do, different things, different experiences come up that we have to work through. But from chaos, we can get into innovation, right? We can find new ways of doing this, right? A new way of approach, a new way of thinking, a new philosophy. And then when we get to the highest energy here, it's about innocence, where
mm,
chaos no longer exists. There's
mm,
no room for chaos anymore. It's a state of pure, sort of childlike trust in the universe,
mm,
in the potential for healing. That is in our world, complete trust in life, that things are happening as it should be, for the experiences that you've come here to
mm.
live through. So it is just an interesting week in light of the conversation.
Well, it actually fits quite perfectly.
Uh-huh. Yes. So what I could say in, closing, as we're getting down to the hour here, or up to the hour, is to take care of yourself, right?
Mhm,
Make sure you have plenty of exercise, good food, good water, that you are, getting enough rest, that you are taking care of you, because if you don't, who's going to?
Yeah.
right? And you can't help others if you aren't filled up first. So,
Yep. Yep.
yeah.
There's a
All right.
there's a great distinction between selfishness and selflessness. And I don't think people understand generally the difference between those two concepts.
And I think there's a identification with self-centeredness, right?
Mhm.
Where that becomes something naughty or something horrible or something that you shouldn't be. And that is simply not true. If you are not centered in yourself, you really don't have any extra to give,
Mhm.
right? You have nothing left if you're not self-centered. So it doesn't mean that you are selfish. There's a big difference there.
Yeah.
um, Self-centered says I see to myself first, and then as when I'm full, then I can help, then I can give, then I can share. All right, any final words from the two of you? Anything going on in your world that you want to share with people before we close today?
Just to hang on, that we're all going to get through this chaotic time. It is a time of turbulence on purpose. Whatever your challenges may be, do your best to look at them and change your perspective into opportunities and find new portals of opening, new ways of being, because that's what it's all about right now.
And thank goodness there are astrological changes on the very horizon
Yes.
that are going to bring different energies
Yes.
quite soon.
Definitely, definitely. I'm getting ready to do the Astrology of 2025 webinar. I mean, I do that every December. And I was sitting here thinking the other day about how I have to clean up my own thinking about what's happening and what's coming, because I have to be able to present these very chaotic, I'm going to close that word out of my vocabulary, these very change oriented energies coming up for next year.
Yep.
Because people don't need to be scared. It's just
Yep.
change. It's just
Yep.
change.
No, they
That's
need,
what life is change.
Yeah.
Life is change.
Life has changed.
Yes.
people need to be informed, but not scared.
Exactly, exactly right. It's kind of exciting what's happening for next year, but it is
Mhm.
also going to be a little turbulent, right?
Yep.
Because it's change.
Yep.
Pia, Tom is asking for a Pleiadian card. Do you have your deck handy? If you don't, I do. I'd have to go digging for mine.
Choose a card. I just shuffled the deck. Evolution, ascension. You're on the path of ascension, creating your future self as a new human.
Creating.
Yeah.
Show us the card. Show us the picture. Ooh, look at that. I love the light, the pillar, right? The light pillar.
Yep.
I love it. And 13 is the number of ascension. Is that right? That's the 13.
This is a 6. This card is a 6, telling us to flow through this process.
Gotcha. Okay. Flow through this process.
Yep.
We got it. All right, guys. Thank you so much for being with me this morning. And thank all of you listeners for tuning in. If you have any questions, you know where to find us, and do some research, do some, work on your own healing, and bring back your experiences and share them with others. We're
Yep.
all in this together.
Yes, we
One
are.
of the things our Pleiadian friends always tell us is be curious.
Mm. They must be Geminis. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Take care, everybody. Bye for now.
Bye-bye for now.